My name is Briella Hawthorne, and I'm 38 years old. If you'd looked at my life on paper the morning this whole disaster started, you'd probably think I was one of those women who'd made it. You know the type people like to brag about at reunions and book clubs. Thriving custom woodworking business I built from absolutely nothing. A boyfriend who actually pulls his weight. 2 properties in suburban Denver, our home in Highlands Ranch, and a rental in Lakewood. No kids yet, but not because we can't. Because we've been careful, intentional, trying to build something solid before bringing a child into the chaos of the world I grew up in. My boyfriend Noah is a brilliant software engineer who makes excellent money and still somehow has the emotional maturity to ask how my day was and actually listen to the answer. Meanwhile, I spend my days turning slabs of wood into tables, cabinets, and custom pieces that people wait months for. Every groove, every dovetail joint is a reminder that I did this without anyone swooping in to save me. I wish I could tell you that my parents were proud of that they were the ones who saw my talent when it was just a girl in a garage with a sander and a cheap mask, but that would be a lie. My parents raised 2 kids, me, the older daughter who learned early how to make herself small and self-sufficient, and my younger brother, Derek, who has never worked a legitimate job in his entire adult life. I swear on every splinter I've ever pulled out of my hands, this man has floated from one ridiculous startup idea to another, each one paid for with someone else's money. Usually my parents. They paid Derek's full ride at Colorado State. When I wanted to go to CU Boulder, I was told there wasn't enough money and that I should be realistic and work my way through community college instead. So I did. I waited tables, stocked shelves, babysat, and slowly clawed my way into something resembling a life. When I wanted to start my woodworking business, I sat at their kitchen table with a rough business plan, trembling with hope. My dad barely skimmed it before saying it was too risky and I should find a stable job with health insurance. My mom added that women in trades have a hard time, like that was some kind of kindness. Fast forward a few years, Derek announces he's an entrepreneur. Suddenly, every conversation at that same kitchen table is about nurturing his vision and believing in his potential. My dad co-signed his first business loan while I was still sanding table legs alone at midnight to make rent. And then there's Brittany, Derek's fiancée, who has champagne taste on a beer budget and the kind of Instagram presence that looks like a sponsored ad for someone else's life. Designer handbags, weekend trips to Vail, bottomless brunches, all meticulously documented for her 900-something followers. I have no idea where the money comes from because neither of them actually works. Derek is between ventures, which is code for living off my parents' generosity while exploring new opportunities. Brittany doesn't work because she's busy planning a wedding and building her brand, which currently consists of makeup tutorials filmed in rented Airbnbs and a TikTok about manifestation. 3 months ago, my parents called with exciting news. That's how my mom phrased it, voice bright and breathy, the way she used to sound when telling us we were going to Disneyland. "We sold the house," she practically sang. "Can you believe it, Bree? 30 years in Littleton, gone just like that. We got such a good price." The house she was talking about was the one I grew up in, a beautiful ranch-style place in Littleton with a yard my dad obsessed over and a kitchen my mom insisted on repainting every few years. I could picture the creak of the hallway floorboard outside my childhood bedroom just from hearing the word sold. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to be happy for them. "That's great, Mom. You and Dad deserve to enjoy retirement. So what's the plan? Downsizing? One of those active adult communities in Castle Rock?" It made perfect sense. They're in their late 60s. They've both worked hard their whole lives. Dad put in 3 decades with Excel energy. Mom spent years as an elementary school teacher, being everyone else's surrogate parent. They deserve something calm and comfortable. My mom laughed. That bubbly, slightly manic laugh she gets when she's about to say something unhinged and pretend it's totally normal. "Oh, sweetheart, we're so excited. We got $650,000 for the house." "That's amazing," I said, doing the quick mental math. They'd bought it cheap back in the day. "You'll be set." There was a pause. On the other end of the line, I could almost hear her smile tighten. "Well, actually, we gave it to Derek." I thought I'd misheard her. I actually took the phone away from my ear and stared at it like that would make the words rearrange into something sane. "I'm sorry, you gave him what?" "All of it," she said cheerfully. 650,000 as a wedding gift. He found this gorgeous penthouse in Lodo, and we wanted to help him start his new life with Brittany. For a second, the world went quiet. Not in a poetic way, more like when you're in a workshop and someone hits the power on the table saw and your ears keep ringing for a beat. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Noah glanced over from the stove, eyebrows knitting, but I held up a hand. You gave Derek all the money, I repeated, slowly, like maybe she'd hear how insane it sounded if I fed it back to her. Every penny from the house? Yeah. Yes, Bree. It's an investment in his future, she said. You know how hard it is for young couples to get into the market these days. I'm 38. Derek is 35. But sure, young couples. Okay, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. So if all that money went to Derek, where are you and Dad going to live? Oh, we have it all figured out, she chirped. Don't worry about us. That tone, light, sing-song, dismissive, set every alarm bell in my body ringing. I pressed my fingers into my temple. Mom, where are you moving? She dropped it casually, like she was telling me what she'd had for lunch. Into your rental, of course. I straightened. I'm sorry? The Lakewood house, she said, like I might have forgotten I owned a property. You know, the one you rent out? It's perfect for us. One story, good neighborhood, close enough to Derek and Brittany's place. Your dad and I already started packing. We'll be out of the hotel in no time. The hotel. So they'd already sold the house, handed over every cent to Derek, checked into a hotel, and decided, without a single conversation with me, that they were moving into my investment property. What about my tenants? I asked, my voice going cold. Jake and Amanda? They have a legal lease, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, you can just tell them they have to go, she said, as if leases were interchangeable with dinner reservations. You own it. They'll understand. It's family. In the background, I heard my dad's voice. Tell her we'll take good care of the place. There was a time when that line would have twisted the knife. Now it just made me tired. No, I said. Silence. What? My mother asked, like someone had cut the audio on her favorite show. I'm not evicting my tenants so you can move in, I repeated. They pay on time. They've never caused any trouble. They have a contract. I'm not breaking it because you decided to give Derek all your money. My dad's voice came closer to the phone. When he takes over a conversation, the temperature drops 10 degrees. Briella, he said, his tone flat and heavy with warning, we raised you. This is what family does for each other. There it was, the script I knew by heart. Family. The same family that paid for Derek's college, but not mine. The same family that funded his failed businesses while telling me to be realistic. The same family that just handed him $650,000 and assumed I'd clean up the mess. No, I said again. My hand was trembling, but my voice wasn't. What family doesn't do is destroy their daughter's livelihood because they made a reckless financial decision. You sold your house. You gave Derek the money. That is not my problem to solve. You're choosing strangers over your own parents, my mother whispered, like she was narrating a tragedy. I'm choosing not to break the law for you, I replied. You need to find another place to live. I can't believe this. Her voice went shrill, the way it did when a waiter got her order wrong. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for Derek, I corrected. Don't you dare talk about your brother that way, my dad snapped. He needs help right now. His condo is a big step. His $1.4 million penthouse? I asked. Funded with your retirement and imaginary income? That condo is not my step to take. There was a furious exhale on the other end of the line. My dad lowered his voice, the way he used to when I was a kid, and he wanted to make sure I understood there would be consequences. You're going to regret this, Briella. Maybe I would, I thought, but not nearly as much as I'd regret letting them steamroll my life again. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up before my courage slipped. Noah had turned off the burner. He leaned against the opposite counter, watching me. Please tell me you're not actually considering it, he said quietly. I let out a shaky laugh that didn't feel like mine. Not for a second, but something tells me that no was just the opening act. I wish I could say I was wrong. I had no idea how far my parents were willing to go, or how many people they would drag into the fight, just to make my home, my business, and my boundaries their backup plan. And the worst part? This was only the beginning. The thing about setting boundaries with people who have never respected them is this. They don't hear no, they hear try harder. For a week after that phone call, things were eerily quiet. No follow-up texts, no guilt-tripping voicemails, no, we'll talk about this when you've calmed down, from my dad. If I'd been smarter, I would have known the silence wasn't peace. It was planning. The following Tuesday, I was in my workshop, putting the finishing touches on a custom dining table a client had been waiting 6 months for. 8 feet of white oak, honey warm under the shop lights, with hand-cut joinery I was irrationally proud of. Sanding the last edge, I could feel that familiar satisfaction in my chest, the sense that for once, something in my life was solid and square and level. That's when my phone started vibrating on the workbench, skittering against the wood like it was trying to escape. It was Jake, my tenant. I almost let it go to voicemail. My hands were dusty, and usually if he called, it was about something minor we could handle over text. But something in my gut tugged hard. I wiped my palms on my apron and answered. "Hey, Jake, everything okay?" His voice came through, shaking. "Briella, we need help. There are people at the front door saying they own the house." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. "What do you mean they say they own it?" I asked, already knowing. My heart was pounding so hard it made my voice sound flat. "They have suitcases," he said. "They're pounding on the door, yelling at us to pack up and get out. The woman keeps saying this is their house now and we're trespassing." Behind him, I could hear the dull thud of fists on wood, muffled shouting. A woman's voice, shrill and insistent, bled through the phone. "We know you're in there. Open this door right now." I closed my eyes. "Did they give you their names?" I asked anyway, because sometimes a person needs to hear the answer out loud to stop pretending. "They said they're your parents," Jake said. "They keep demanding to be let in." Of course they did. I took a breath that didn't make it all the way into my lungs. "Okay, listen carefully. Do not open the door. I don't care what they say. You and Amanda stay inside. If they try to break in, call 911. I'm on my way." I didn't even turn off the table saw. I just grabbed my keys, ripped off my apron, and bolted. The drive to Lakewood is usually a 20-minute podcast and coffee kind of commute. That day it felt like driving through a tunnel with the walls closing in. Every stoplight was an attack. Every slow car was a personal insult. My mind kept replaying the same image. My mother on that porch, suitcase in hand, indignant that the life she'd given away wasn't magically replaced with mine. By the time I turned onto the quiet street where my rental sat, a modest, neat ranch with flower beds Amanda had lovingly filled with petunias, I could hear my mother before I saw her. "This is ridiculous," she was shouting. "We know you're in there. Open this door right now." I pulled up to the curb and killed the engine. There they were. My mom standing on the front porch like a furious queen, fist raised to pound the door again. My dad beside her, arms crossed, chin lifted, trying to look like a landlord checking in on a delinquent tenant instead of a man who'd given away his house and decided to commandeer mine as a life raft. 2 enormous suitcases sat on the walkway. Grocery bags from King Soopers drooped at their feet, as if they'd come for an extended stay, or to stage a photo op for the family sympathy campaign I didn't know about yet. The curtains in the front window twitched. Jake and Amanda were inside, hiding like it was a siege. Because it was. My mom saw my car, and her entire demeanor flipped in a heartbeat. "Briella," she called, plastering on a relieved smile, like we were in some heartwarming reunion scene. "Thank goodness you're here. These people won't leave." "These people," I repeated under my breath as I walked up the path. My heart felt like a hammer in my chest, but my voice, when it came out, was terrifyingly calm. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing?" "We're moving in," my mother said, as if this explained everything. "We told you we needed somewhere to live." "And I told you that wasn't happening," I replied. My dad stepped forward, performing authority. "We've been staying at a Hampton Inn for 2 weeks waiting for you to handle this situation," he said. "We checked out today. We have nowhere else to go." I stared at him. "You've been in a hotel for 2 weeks. And at no point did you think, maybe we should call a realtor or look for an apartment or literally do anything besides show up here with suitcases and no plan?" My mom huffed. "We did make a plan. You have a house. We're your parents. It's simple." Behind me, Jake's voice floated through the door, strained. Is everything okay out there? Should we call someone?" I turned, pitching my voice loud enough for him to hear. "Everything's fine, Jake. My parents are leaving." "We are not leaving," my mother snapped. All pretense gone. "This is family property. We sold our house to help your brother. The least you can do is let us stay here." "This is my property," I said, the words landing like nails driven into wood. "I bought it with my money from my business that I built from zero help from either of you. It is not family property. It is mine. And Jake and Amanda are my legal tenants." My dad's jaw tightened. "We raised you, Briella. We fed you. We clothed you. You provided the legal minimum required to avoid child neglect charges," I cut in. "Meanwhile, you paid for Derek's entire education, funded his failed businesses, handed him $650,000, and now you're demanding I evict innocent people so you have a free place to live." My mother's face crumpled. She went straight to her favorite costume, the wounded martyr. "How can you talk to us like this?" she wailed. "After everything we've sacrificed, a good daughter takes care of her parents." "A good parent doesn't gamble their entire retirement on their son's fantasy penthouse and then treat their daughter's property like a spare bedroom," I shot back. The neighbor across the street was pretending to check his mail, eyes flicking over. Another porch curtain shifted next door. Great. An audience. My mother loved an audience. "We checked out of the hotel today," my dad repeated. "We literally have nowhere else to go. Does that mean nothing to you?" "What it means," I said slowly, "is that you chose to sell your house. You chose to give Derek all the money. You chose to make no backup plan. Your emergency does not magically become my obligation." Jake cracked the door slightly, just enough that I could see one worried eye. "Briella, if they don't leave, do you want us to call the police?" Both my parents whipped around like he'd suggested calling in an airstrike. "You wouldn't dare involve the police in a family matter," my dad snarled. "He absolutely would," I said, my voice smooth. "And so would I. You are trespassing on my property, harassing my tenants, and attempting to force your way into a house that is not yours." "Unbelievable," my mother muttered. She rounded on me, voice rising. "You're choosing strangers over your own blood. You're ashamed of us. Is that it? You think you're better than your own family now?" That one hit a familiar nerve. I'd heard versions of it my whole life, whenever I tried to want more than the script they'd written for me. "No," I said, "I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just finally think I deserve the same respect you give Derek when you write him blank checks." My dad reached for the doorknob as if this was all beneath him, and he could end it by sheer force of will. Jake flinched back. "That's enough," I said sharply. "Move away from the door." He turned on me, eyes cold. "We're your parents." "And they are my tenants," I said. "Here's how this is going to go. You're going to pick up your suitcases, get back in your car, and leave. If you are not off this property in 5 minutes, Jake is going to call 911, and I will back him up." My father stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. For years, I'd been the daughter who bent, so he didn't have to even lean. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "Maybe," I replied, "but not as much as I'd regret throwing away my integrity and my business because you refuse to face the consequences of your choices." My mother started crying. Big, loud sobs that echoed down the street. "You're killing this family," she gasped. "You're breaking your father's heart. Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave if she saw you treat us like this." I swallowed hard at the mention of my grandmother. She was the one person who'd ever slipped me 20s and whispered, "Save this for yourself." But I didn't let it sway me. "Grandma Rose also told me never to let anyone, even family, take advantage of me," I said softly. "I'm pretty sure she'd understand." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Jake spoke again, more firmly this time. "I'm going to call the police in 4 minutes if you're still here." Something in my dad's face cracked. Not the stubbornness. That was bone deep. But the certainty. He looked at the suitcases, at the houses on either side, at the Ring camera above the door, blinking its quiet red light. "Come on," he muttered to my mother. "Get the bags." "This isn't over," she yelled at me as he grabbed the handles. "You will need us someday, and we won't be there." I didn't say the obvious response, that I'd needed them plenty of times, and they hadn't been there then, either. They heaved the suitcases into their silver Honda CR-V. My mother sobbed theatrically the entire time, throwing in words like ungrateful and heartless, loud enough for the neighborhood to hear. My father slammed the trunk, slid into the driver's seat, and peeled away from the curb without another word. When their car finally disappeared around the corner, I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 38 years. The front door creaked open. Jake and Amanda stood there, both pale. "I am so sorry," I said immediately. "None of this is your fault. Are you okay? Did they threaten you?" "They just wouldn't stop," Amanda said, her voice small. "We were afraid they'd try to break in." Jake nodded. "We didn't know what to do. We didn't want to get you in trouble, but we also didn't want to, get steamrolled." My heart clenched. I knew that feeling intimately. "You did the right thing calling me," I said. "If they ever show up again, you call me and then call 911 if you feel unsafe. I will handle it." A part of me wondered if I was lying, if anyone really handles parents like mine. But another part, the one that builds solid tables that don't wobble, knew I meant it. "I also completely understand if you want to break your lease after this," I added. "I'll waive any penalties. You don't have to decide now, but I won't blame you if you're uncomfortable staying." Jake and Amanda exchanged a look. "Let us think about it," Jake said. We really like it here. We just weren't expecting all of that." "Neither was I said quietly. As I drove away, my hands finally started shaking. The adrenaline left my veins and was replaced by a heavy, simmering dread. Because here's the ugly truth I knew down to the marrow. People who feel entitled to your property, your time, your life, don't stop when you say no once. They regroup, they escalate, and my parents had just lost their first battle. When people like my parents get told no, they don't take it as an answer. They take it as an invitation to recruit, to rally, to weaponize other people against you until you're worn down enough to say, fine, whatever, just to make the noise stop. The next morning, my phone started ringing before the sun even had the dignity to rise. At 7 a.m., Aunt Patricia's name flashed across the screen. If guilt trips were a sport, she'd have Olympic medals. I was still half asleep, hair stuck to my cheek, coffee not even brewed. But something told me ignoring the call would only make things worse. I answered, "Morning, Aunt. How could you do this to your parents?" No greeting, not even a fake one. What? I croaked. "They raised you, Briella. They're living like refugees in some hotel while you sit on 2 houses and refuse to help them. What kind of daughter abandons the people who made her who she is?" I sat up in bed. "Patricia, do you know the full story?" "I don't want excuses," she snapped. "Figure out a way to help them." Then she hung up. I stared at the phone like it might apologize for her. It didn't. By 9 a.m., I had 3 missed calls and 5 new texts from numbers I didn't usually hear from. Cousin Brandon, a man I hadn't talked to since he got into multi-level marketing and tried to sell me miracle supplements, left a voicemail calling me cold and ungrateful. Uncle Robert sent a long message about family values and respecting your elders. My mom's best friend, whom I'd met twice in my life, texted me paragraphs about how a daughter's duty is sacred. Not one of these people asked for my side of the story. Not one. It was like my parents had sent out a newsletter. "Briella has betrayed us. Please apply pressure until she breaks." At 10:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a Facebook message from cousin Stephanie, someone who posts daily affirmations about boundaries and healing, but apparently none of that applies when she wants something. She wrote, "Your poor parents. They're in a cramped hotel room with nowhere to go. They're so devastated. They don't deserve this from their daughter." Cramped hotel room? My parents were staying at a Hampton Inn, with free breakfast and a pool. And even that was by choice. But Stephanie ended her message with a dig so sharp it actually made me laugh. "I hope you're happy with the woman you've become." Bold of someone who once stole my mascara at Thanksgiving to question my moral compass. By noon, I'd received 8 phone calls, 15 texts, 4 Facebook messages, and 1 passive-aggressive full Bible verse from my aunt, who attends church twice a year but weaponizes scripture weekly. Each message was the same. Family matters. Your parents need you. You owe them. Why are you doing this to them? Not a single one said, "Hey, what actually happened?" Because none of them cared. They weren't looking for truth. They were looking for a villain. And my parents had nominated me. By late afternoon, my nerves were shot. Every vibration made my stomach flip. I kept replaying the scene at the rental house. My parents pounding on the door, Jake and Amanda terrified, suitcases on the porch like they were claiming land in the Wild West. Noah came into my workshop around 5 p.m., concern etched all over him. "Still nothing from your parents directly?" he asked, leaning against my workbench. "No," I said, "but they unleashed the cavalry." He handed me a glass of water. "You can block the relatives." I stared at the phone in my hand, buzzing again. If I block everyone, they'll just say I'm hiding, that I don't want to own up to what I've done. "What you've done?" Noah scoffed. "You protected your tenants and your property. That's called being a responsible adult." His support made something tight inside me crack open. I blinked, feeling a sting behind my eyes. "I'm tired," I admitted. "I'm so tired of being the villain in a story I didn't write." Noah put an arm around me, grounding me in a way I didn't know I needed. "So rewrite it," he murmured into my hair. "Tell the truth." I let the words settle. Tell the truth. My parents were spinning a fantasy, so I would give the family something they couldn't argue with. Facts. Receipts. A timeline so clear that even the cousins who still think the moon landing was staged would understand. That night, after dinner, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and opened a blank email. Subject line, "Setting the record straight, the full story." Then I started typing. It wasn't fast, it wasn't emotional, it wasn't petty. It was surgical. I broke everything down into bullet points. as my parents sold the Littleton house for $650,000. They gave all the money to Derek for a penthouse down payment. They made no housing plan for themselves. They declared, not asked, that they were moving into my rental property. They expected me to illegally evict tenants with a valid lease. When I refused, they harassed my tenants. When I still refused, they launched a family-wide smear campaign. I attached, and photos of the lease agreement, screenshots of texts, property records showing I bought the rental years ago, a screenshot of Jake's message about them pounding on the door. Then I ended with the line that made me sit back in my chair, exhale, and think, this might actually end the war. I wrote, since so many of you are concerned about our parents' living situation, I'm sure one of you will be happy to provide them with a place to stay. Please reply with your move-in date so I can give them your address. 30 recipients, 1 email. I hovered my cursor over send. Then I clicked. No dramatic music, no lightning strike, just the quiet, definitive whoosh of truth leaving my outbox. And for the first time in days, my phone stopped buzzing. Not a single call the next morning. Not one text, not one Facebook message dripping with condescension. It was silent, beautifully, unnervingly silent. Around noon, replies started trickling in, and they fell neatly into 3 categories. People who suddenly didn't have enough space. 2. People who said nothing at all. 3. People who doubled down, but still didn't offer a spare bedroom. Uncle Robert sent a dramatic email about how I was destroying the family and dishonoring my ancestors. I replied with 1 sentence. What's your move-in date? He never responded. The family Facebook group, normally a war zone of political memes and casserole recipes, went dead quiet. Apparently, being publicly volunteered to house my parents was where everyone's sense of duty ended. By Friday afternoon, the harassment campaign evaporated. Poof, gone. And that's when I realized something ugly and true. My parents didn't want help. They wanted control, and when they couldn't get it from me, they would look for their next angle. Little did I know that the collapse of Derek's perfect life, the one my parents bankrupted themselves to build, was already beginning. The first sign that something was very, very wrong didn't come from my parents. It came from my cousin Maria. Maria is one of the few relatives who minds her own business and has enough chaos of her own that she doesn't try to swim in other people's drama. So when she texts me, it's never to guilt trip. It's usually to warn. Her message popped up on my phone on an otherwise uneventful Tuesday afternoon. Hey, did you know Derek is having problems with his penthouse purchase? My eyebrows shot up. Problems, Derek? Mr. I'm manifesting abundance himself? I typed back. What kind of problems? Maria answered. Bank wants employment verification. Income statements. Actual proof of steady income. Apparently that's complicated. I stared at the screen. Complicated. Right. Like hydrogen is complicated for someone with a lit match. I knew exactly what this meant. Derek didn't have any of the paperwork the bank wanted because Derek didn't have a job. Not a real one. Not one with pay stubs or tax returns or anything that would suggest he participates in the economy beyond spending other people's money. Over the next few weeks, the family grapevine, a chaotic network of cousins, in-laws, and church ladies with too much free time, started feeding me details. The picture that formed was the kind of story you'd swear was embellished if you didn't already know the characters. The bank had initially given Derek a pre-approval based on the size of the down payment my parents gave him, and the projected income from his consulting business. Projected income from a business that consisted of a website, some Canva-made business cards, and Derek meeting people at coffee shops to discuss opportunities. No clients, no contracts, no revenue, just vibes and delusion. So when it came time for final loan approval, the bank did the thing banks are notorious for. They demanded proof. And in pay stubs, tax returns, invoices, business records, evidence that his so-called business wasn't powered by good intentions and gift money. Derek had none of it. Not even creative accounting could save him. The bank basically laughed him out of the office. Without income, they weren't issuing a $750,000 mortgage for a glass tower penthouse with mountain views and concierge service, which meant Derek couldn't buy the penthouse, which meant Derek couldn't get his deposit back, which meant my parents had just burned through their entire life savings for nothing. And because disasters always come in pairs, the next meltdown hit like clockwork. Derek and Brittany were deep into planning their massive, over-the-top wedding. The venue? The Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. Grand ballroom, string quartet, open bar, champagne towers, a 250 guest spectacle designed for Instagram. The kind of wedding you book when you think the universe, or your parents, owes you a fairy tale. The Broadmoor wanted final payment 2 weeks before the ceremony. Derek didn't have it. Brittany didn't have it. And my parents, having given away every penny from selling their house, definitely didn't have it. So naturally, Derek started reaching out to relatives for loans. The word loan was doing a lot of heavy lifting there because everyone in the family knew he wasn't planning on paying any of it back. I got the text at 8:19 p.m. Hey Bree, look, I know we've had our differences, but I could really use your help with the venue payment. It's only $18,000. Only, as if he was asking for a ride to the airport. I stared at the message until Noah leaned over my shoulder. Don't even think about it, he said quietly. I'm not, I replied. I deleted the message. I didn't respond. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who ignored Derek, because slowly, the Broadmoor wedding collapsed. No payment, no grace period, no miracle. The venue canceled their booking 3 days before the ceremony. 3 days. They ended up getting married in Brittany's parents' backyard instead. Half the guests didn't show up because they couldn't rearrange travel plans on such short notice. The string quartet became a Bluetooth speaker. The champagne tower became warm Prosecco, and Brittany, according to Maria, cried through most of the reception, wailing that this wasn't her dream wedding. Meanwhile, Derek sulked because the groom's suite didn't come with a mountain view. While all of this unfolded like a slow-motion car crash, I closed on my third property, a small commercial building in Golden. It needed work, sure, but it had incredible potential. The seller was motivated, and I got it $45,000 under market value. I posted a simple photo on Instagram of the keys in my hand. Another project in the works. Sometimes patience pays off. No bragging, no digs at anyone, no explanation. Just a quiet celebration. Some relatives liked the post. My parents didn't. Neither did Derek. I wasn't surprised. People who resent your success always think it's an attack on their failure. But what I didn't realize, not yet, was that the financial meltdown, the canceled wedding, and the collapsing penthouse deal were only Act 1. Because my parents were about to make a final desperate move, something that crossed every line, something that made the rental incident look like a warm-up. And it would happen on a morning that should have been peaceful, hopeful even. A morning when Noah and I were talking about names for our future baby. A morning when the last people I wanted to see showed up on my porch, with flowers, with groceries, and with a manipulation script polished to perfection. Some mornings arrive soft. The light is warm, the house is quiet, and for a few precious minutes, it feels like the world is finally letting you breathe. That Saturday started like that. Noah and I were sitting at the kitchen island, hands wrapped around matching mugs of coffee, debating baby names and nursery colors. The air smelled like toasted bagels and fresh paint samples I'd been obsessing over online. There was this gentle hum of possibility in the room. The kind that comes when you're imagining a future that looks nothing like the past you crawled out of. Then my Ring doorbell chimed. I glanced at my phone screen, expecting a package or a neighbor. I did not expect them. My parents stood on the porch like they were posing for a postcard titled Manipulation in the Wild. My mother wore a soft pink blouse and held a bouquet of flowers. Lilies, her favorite, not mine. My father stood beside her, shoulders squared, clutching a grocery bag like some kind of peace offering. They looked rehearsed, like they'd practiced this in a mirror. In unison, they leaned toward the Ring camera as if addressing a live audience. Briella, sweetheart, my mother cooed, voice artificially sweet. We know you're home. We can see your car in the driveway. I froze. So did Noah. My mother lifted the flowers higher, smiling too wide. We brought groceries to cook for you. I thought I'd make that pot roast you used to love. The pot roast I used to love at age 9, before she started weaponizing comfort food as a way to avoid accountability. My father chimed in with a forced smile. Let's talk inside, as a family. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, that old familiar dread slithering through me. Don't open the door, Noah murmured, his hand finding mine. I won't, I said, but my voice sounded far away. Because here's the thing. When you grow up with parents like mine, your body responds long before your brain catches up. My pulse was already pounding in my ears. My hands were already cold. Every childhood interaction, every guilt trip, every silent treatment, every twist of emotional leverage came roaring back like a flash flood. I steadied myself and watched as the performance continued. Minute 3. My mother started crying. Soft, fragile tears, the kind she uses as a moral crowbar. We've been thinking about everything, she sniffled. We made mistakes. We should have asked about the rental, but you shouldn't punish us forever. Punish. That word hit me like a slap. Saying no to being financially exploited was punishment. Setting boundaries was punishment. Protecting my tenants was punishment. My father stepped closer to the camera, jaw tightening. We're not leaving until you open this door. There it was. The shift. The sweetness dissolving, revealing the real demand beneath it. Noah exhaled sharply. Bree, this is crossing a line. Again. It crossed a line months ago, I whispered. And something in me, something buried so deep I didn't even know it was still there, finally broke. Not in a messy, helpless way. In a clarity way. In a this ends right now way. I picked up my phone. Who are you calling? Noah asked gently. The police, I said, and I didn't hesitate. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. Non-emergency line, what's the situation? I took a steadying breath. I need to report trespassing. 2 individuals are on my property and refusing to leave. There is a prior incident involving them attempting to forcibly enter my rental home. Are they relatives? She asked, her tone careful. Yes, I said, but that does not make this okay. Behind me, on the ring footage, my mother was now knocking again, each hit louder than the last. Briella, she cried, this is ridiculous. Come out here and talk like adults. My father's voice boomed. We are not leaving. We are your parents. Open the door. I felt Noah's hand on my back. Steady, grounding, warm. The dispatcher told me officers would arrive shortly and asked me to stay inside. I hung up. And for the first time in my life, something inside me went absolutely still. Not numb, not scared. Just done. Done with the guilt. Done with the manipulation. Done with the cycle of maybe this time they'll be different. Done with setting myself on fire to keep them warm. On the porch, my father was now pacing, muttering under his breath. My mother sat down on one of the patio chairs, burying her face dramatically in her hands. I turned away from the screen. Noah wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin on my shoulder. You did the right thing, he whispered. I know, I said, and I meant it. For the first time, I truly meant it. Because sometimes choosing peace means choosing distance, and sometimes choosing sanity means choosing consequences. Either way, it was time. Time for the police to arrive. Time for the performance to end. Time for the final line to be drawn in permanent ink. People always say blood is thicker than water, but here's what I've learned. Boundaries are thicker than both, and once you finally enforce them, there's no going back.